Johni Broome is headed to Philadelphia with the 76ers, and Auburn's coaching staff is complete for next season. Welcome into today's edition of the Barn Hoops Podcast. I am Jacob Hillman, and last night the NBA draft concluded, and Johni Broome was selected with the 35th overall pick by the Philadelphia 76ers, becoming Auburn's 7th player to be drafted in the NBA in the last 7 seasons. Also, in the last week, Auburn's coaching staff has been completed, with Matt Gatens being hired as general manager, Ian Borders being promoted to assistant coach. We're going to cover it all right here in this episode of the Barn Hoops Podcast. But before we get into it, we remind you that this show is presented by mybookie.ag, where you can earn a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 by entering the coupon code BARN, that's B-A-R-N, at mybookie.ag. Coupon code BARN, B-A-R-N, to earn a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000 at mybookie.ag. Again, as I was saying, the NBA draft concluded last night as Johni Broome was selected with the 35th overall pick. At the time of this recording, Miles Kelly was signed to an undrafted free agent contract with the Dallas Mavericks, and Dylan Cardwell was signed by the Sacramento Kings. So 3 Auburn legends that were that their NBA dreams came true. Obviously, 3 guys critical to the Final Four last year, and we'll talk about Johni Broome at length here. But first, Miles Kelly and Dylan Cardwell, they're going to have to compete in the NBA Summer League here in the next few weeks. It's a quick turnaround for these draftees, as well as the guys that are signed to these two-way contracts, and they'll compete for a two-way contract in the Summer League to have a potential to have a set roster spot on the G League roster, and then a chance to play in the NBA as well and get some critical minutes there. But Johni Broome being drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers. 76ers are obviously led by a former MVP in Joel Embiid. Tyrese Maxey is on this roster, and it's a team that can really use a big man like Johni Broome. And he's listed as a center, but I think he's going to have to make his money kind of at the 4 spot. Paul George is on this roster as well. And I just think that Johni does fit in pretty well here, and the opportunity that he's going to have a chance to take is if he wants to be that starting power forward. The 3 and the outside shooting is going to have to develop, but it doesn't have to for him to be successful in general in the NBA, as we've seen what kind of player he is in college. Obviously, whenever he does make the 3, then his game just really excels. But even when it's not, he is such a great post player. He's a great player when he has the basketball, just playmaking, passing the ball, and that's something that he'll be able to provide for the 76ers. Over the next few weeks, we'll see him in the Summer League for Philadelphia. I think the first game for Philadelphia in the Summer League is set against the San Antonio Spurs. I'm not sure exactly the date of that, but it's really interesting just to really think about how this Auburn program has turned into a program that churns out NBA talent. And the last 2 years hasn't really shown that. But what's more impressive is that Auburn's won without having an NBA draft selection over the last 2 years. Obviously, last year, Auburn winning an SEC tournament title. But now this year, Auburn going to the Final Four, winning the regular season championship. There are several guys that are being picked up by NBA teams, with Broome going in the second round, and then Miles Kelly alongside Dylan Cardwell being picked up by a couple of teams. But that's probably not the end of it. Denver Jones, Chaney Johnson, both of those guys and a few others have a chance to be picked up by an NBA team and compete in the Summer League and have a chance to make their names and their presence felt in the NBA and earn a two-way contract, or at least G League contract. And that's going to be what's so important for these guys to really have a permanent home in professional basketball. But again, Johni Broome drafted with the 35th pick of the NBA draft last night. And I think Philadelphia is a great home Charles Barkley obviously called him the greatest Auburn basketball player. That's debatable, but I do think that he's the most accomplished for a fact. Obviously, winning 2 SEC championships, won a tournament title, won a regular season championship, and then going to the Final Four. That obviously matches guys like Jared Harper and Bryce Brown and Chuma Okeke. But what those guys don't have to their resume is an SEC Player of the Year or a National Player of the Year title. And that's something that Johni Broome does hold. And he's really been a guy that, he's a transfer from Morehead State, not ranked highly at all out of high school. And then he does his thing at Morehead State, and Auburn immediately goes and picks him up out of the transfer portal, picks him up over Florida, his home state school. And he hangs around for 3 years and does what he does, leading Auburn to a Final Four in his senior campaign, as well as earning that SEC Player of the Year and that National Player of the Year recognition. So Johni Broome has a chance to really excel in the NBA because of what Auburn has developed him into and the things that really he's seen in the SEC. The SEC has been as good as it's ever been during his 3 years at Auburn. Obviously, last year just being the most historic year in SEC basketball history, one of the most historic and one of the best conferences that college basketball has ever seen. So I think he's ready for it, and I think that he's ready to go for Summer League and knows he has a lot to prove just because there are a few doubters out there. And, there's that combine video that goes around about his vertical leap and whatnot that's, blowing out of proportion and whatnot. That does not show what his playmaking ability is like. That doesn't show his offensive skill set. It doesn't show anything like that. And he's going to have a chance with the 76ers to make an impact. And I think that, again, talking about Joel Embiid, it's a guy that's not always healthy. That's just a fact. And who knows when something might happen and he might go down with an injury and also wear management. It's something that's big in the NBA or load management, I should say. That's huge in the NBA. And those are opportunities for Johni Broome to get big minutes if Embiid's out for a back-to-back or something like that. And even if not, I think he can play alongside Embiid, and that can be a big duo in the NBA. But again, Johni Broome selected with the 35th overall pick in the NBA draft. Miles Kelly picked up by the Dallas Mavericks, and the Sacramento Kings signed Dylan Cardwell to Summer League contracts, competing for a two-way contract where they would play on the G League roster with opportunities to play on the NBA roster as well in the 25 to 26 season. We await to see where Denver Jones and Chaney Johnson land, and look forward to seeing where that is and how they perform in the Summer League. We'll cover all of that as the months go along and we see how those guys perform right here on the Barn Hoops podcast. But again, the player development has been really impressive for Auburn over the last decade with Coach Pearl at the helm, and that's going to continue as the Tigers hire Matt Gatens as the general manager. That's a new role, and promote Ian Borders to assistant coach to replace Chad Pruitt on the bench. And we'll start with Matt Gatens to that general manager role. And because it's a new role and it's something that you're going to see so much of in college basketball with the new house settlement against the NCAA and just the NIL and transfer portal world that we live in now, even without the house settlement, just putting that aside, mainly because there's still a lot to be decided and a lot to be finalized in that deal, that it's not worth, to me at least, it's not worth talking about in depth at this point. We'll get there, but right now there's still so much in limbo, and July 1st is the big date for this, and I just think that we still got a lot to learn, and I don't want to speak on something and it completely changed. Things change every day now in college athletics, it seems, and that whether it's NIL, transfer portal, or this house settlement. So we'll wait to see things finalize a little bit, but Matt Gatens is going to be very important and critical to this house settlement, regardless of what's going to happen in the NIL space, as well as the transfer portal and high school recruiting. And if you obviously follow Auburn football, chances are you do. Will Redmond's role in the general manager position for Auburn football, that's similar to what this is, roster management as well as scouting. And Matt Gatens has a great basketball background. He played at Iowa and was a stud there. He's been at Iowa for the last several years as an assistant coach on the floor. So Coach Gatens is not going to be just this general manager that's overseeing basketball operations and player management and roster management. He is going to be a key in improving players and improving the roster and the team as well. So this is not just a specific recruiting or NIL or transfer portal hire. This is to improve the team as is. And I think that Gatens, one, having been at Auburn before, knowing Coach Pearl and a lot of this staff, is going to be able to fill in pretty quickly and really learn the ropes. And things have changed quite a bit since Gatens was last here. I mean, the last when he was at Auburn, it was as a GA, and Jared Harper was early in his career. So, I just think that this role is the most important in college sports right now. That might change, obviously, in the coming years. But at this point, you need a general manager. You need someone to really manage the roster and understand what the NIL landscape is looking at that exact moment, and really evaluate the transfer portal and, who might be there, who isn't going to be there, and what the high school recruiting ranks look like as well. So, I'm excited to see what this looks like and how this can improve Auburn and really see how the Tigers transfer the transfer portal specifically going forward. This is a brand new team that the Tigers are going to see on the court this year. And next year, I think the idea is that a lot of these guys stay. Obviously, Keyshawn Hall, Keyshawn Murphy, they're in their final years of eligibility. Tahad Pettiford nearly could have gone to the NBA this year. So he, with another good season, is probably gone to the NBA. So there's going to be a few replacements next year. And how does Auburn attack that and fill those voids? Matt Gatens is going to be a huge piece in that after the 25 to 26 season, but he's also going to have a huge piece or a huge impact on the 25 to 26 team because of his experience as an assistant coach and just how prolific of a player he was. But an assistant coach that was just promoted, Ian Borders, he has spent a lot of time in the Auburn basketball program, overlapped a little bit with Matt Gatens, as his first year was Gatens' final year with the program. And Borders and Gatens will work together quite a bit. Borders is he was the director of scouting and recruiting the last few years, and he's still going to oversee a lot of those roles, but now it's going to be less of a burden on him, and there's going to be more collaborative effort, clearly with this role of, all right, who are we going after? Who are we trying to bring to this program and really make a difference? And Borders will also be involved in game-to-game scouting, opponent scouting for the team during the season, and player development. Again, we talked about that with Johni Broome being drafted, as well as Miles Kelly and Dylan Cardwell finding their homes for the NBA with the Sacramento Kings, as well as the Dallas Mavericks. Ian Borders, again, this is a guy that's he's been with the program for a while, and Coach Bruce Pearl always says he rewards loyalty, and he does just that right here with Coach Borders, and he's going to step into this role and understand what it is. Obviously, replacing Chad Pruitt, not necessarily going to do the exact same thing as Coach Pruitt, but Ian Borders has his roles, and he understands those and his responsibilities, and he's going to be able to come in and really be successful with that because of what's been established prior to him with Coach Pruitt, as well as Coach Pearl and the rest of this staff. So I'm excited to see how this all works out in the future and what the recruiting process looks like for Auburn going forward. Because, again, we've never seen Auburn have a general manager in basketball. We've seen it with Auburn football over the last 2 seasons with Will Redmond, but it's just a new role that these college basketball programs are going to have in this day and age, because NIL and the transfer portal are so important. You're not just looking in the high school ranks for the best players and who could come to your program. It's, all right, who's leaving after this year from this current team? Who might enter the transfer portal from this team and these other teams, and so on and so on. There's got to be several other guys that are involved in this process, and that's what Matt Gatens will help do, and Ian Borders will continue to do for Auburn over the next few years. But again, Ian Borders is a guy that's been with Auburn since 2018. Matt Gatens has been to Auburn before, but he's had a lot of success elsewhere with Drake as well as Iowa over the last half decade or a little bit more than that, and now steps into a new role as the general manager. But again, this has been a great week for Auburn basketball, filling out this coaching staff as well as seeing 3 of its guys so far. We await to hear Denver Jones and Chaney Johnson's locations and destinations for the NBA, with Johni Broome being drafted by the Philadelphia 76ers, as well as Dylan Cardwell being signed by the Sacramento Kings, and Miles Kelly going to the Dallas Mavericks last night in the NBA. So can't wait to see where Jones as well as Johnson land and how all 5 of those guys perform in the summer league coming up. So, follow along with that, because that's going to be a lot of fun to watch, see those guys perform with some NBA talent, and hopefully they can land at least a 2-way contract, if not even an NBA roster spot with those teams. This offseason, it's a long one. We're just getting into the month of July, but be sure to stay tuned to the Barn Auburn Podcast Network. When you subscribe on YouTube or to your favorite podcast platform, be sure to click the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of the news. Auburn football got that flip quarterback yesterday from Penn State. Top Button Podcast with Kyle Rush, as well as Village Vice with Brad Law and Zach Blackerby will cover it all, as well as any other recruiting news and all the talking season points going into Auburn football season. So make sure you subscribe and like all the podcasts on the Barn Podcast Network. But until next time, thank you for tuning in to the Barn Hoops Podcast right here on the Barn Podcast Network.